Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 2 of the week for the Give and Go podcast. Just a reminder, you can find us on basketbrawlers.ca and all sorts of other social media platforms. And I am joined today by my co-host, as per usual, the one and only Jordan Taylor.
Hey, yo, Raj, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing great. The energy's still high, and I'm ready to talk some playoff basketball. Are you ready to just give and go right away, Jordan?
Man, I've got one segue for you before we get into that comment.
Okay.
I want you to know that only 7 people in the entire NBA played 82 games, but yet every team averaged over 100 points a game this season. Rod, what do you think about that?
Is that uncommon for everyone to average over 100 points a game?
That's the first time in NBA history that every team scored, on average, 100 points a game.
Wow, well, I think it just goes to show the direction of the game is evolving so that it's more catered and the rules are more catered towards offensive outputs. Because, quite frankly, that's what everybody wants to see.
I mean, all I gotta say is all that's gonna mean for playoffs for me is offense, and I am excited. Shall we give and go?
Yeah, let's give and go.
Beautiful basketball, the Sixers are both give and go. NBA give and go.
And welcome back to the Give and Go podcast official 2019 NBA playoff preview. Jordan, we're going to jump right into it with the Eastern Conference, and I want you to give me your predictions for the first matchup. We got the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks taking on the number 8 Detroit Pistons.
What do you want me to say about this one? Did you want me to say I can't wait for Giannis Antetokounmpo to dunk on every Detroit Piston player? Is there anything we need to even say about this first round? I think the big thing we got to understand here is it's already been determined that Blake Griffin is dealing with lingering knee soreness, which for me spells the end of the Pistons before their playoff run even began.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that he's hobbled, because this will give salty as Dwayne Casey another reason and another excuse as to why he didn't perform in the playoffs. I was kind of hoping they'd at least be healthy if they were going to make the playoffs, or that he missed the playoffs altogether. Being a salty Raptors fan in my own right, I think this will be a quick 4 or 5 game series win for the Milwaukee Bucks. What do you think, Jordan?
I just can't wait to see Giannis dunk on people. I just can't wait to see 100 Giannis dunks in 4 games. This is a sweep. Bring out the broom. 1 versus 8. We got no problems here. We're going to walk you on to the next round. Next!
All right, man. Next up on the docket, we got a very interesting matchup. We have the number 2 seed Toronto Raptors against the number 7 seed Orlando Magic. Is this going to be another quick series like the first prediction, or do you think the Magic can give the Raptors some trouble?
Are you calling this one an interesting series just because it's the Raptors playing in the first round? Does it automatically make it an interesting series?
Well, I got some sibling rivalry in here. It's my Raptors versus Rakesh's Orlando Magic. There's always going to be some interesting matchups in that case, man.
Hey, well, I tell you this. From the standpoint of Orlando playing Toronto in the first round, I think this should be, the word interesting is well put. We're talking about a matchup nightmare for Toronto with the hyper-athletic Aaron Gordon at the 4, and of course, Nikola Vucevic, some guy who's kind of in that top 3 for most improved player. He's had a great season this year. Obviously, a lot of these sample sizes the Raptors played against Orlando this season was before the Marc Gasol trade. But fun stat for you, Raj. Orlando and Toronto matchup this season, they're 2-2. They split it. So this has got a lot of other underlying tones to it, and I think a lot of that comes down to the ex-Raptors playing on the Orlando Magic team. You've got guys like Terrence Ross and DJ Augustine. DJ Augustine obviously embracing that role of the starting point guard where we thought there was nobody else to do it, so he's taking that on for himself. And of course, Terrence Ross, who we know disappears in the playoffs as a Raptor, has become much better as a six-man in Orlando and is flaming hot from the three-point land. So if he gets going, we could see a lot of trouble for this Toronto Raptors team. Raj, what you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. Terrence Ross, his nickname went from Coin Toss Ross in Toronto to the Human Flamethrower, or the Human Torch is what I've heard out in Orlando. So, props to him for elevating his game. But yeah, the Orlando Magic have been, I think, the best defensive team in the entire NBA since the All-Star break. So they've definitely got the bodies to match up with the Raptors, throw different looks at Leonard and Siakam, and throw some size against them. But ultimately, I think the Raptors' firepower and their offensive output will outweigh the Orlando Magic's defense. And I think the Raptors will win this series in... I'll give the Magic a game. I think they'll take it in 5, and they'll take care of business because playoff Kawhi is a whole other beast.
I'll tell you one thing, Raj. The important thing to recognize here is that the Orlando Magic, after the All-Star break, finished the season on a 22-9 or 22-7. I have to double check it. Winning basketball record. If that doesn't scare anyone as a Toronto Raptors fan, I don't know what does, because Orlando Magic has been playing the best basketball they've ever played in 5 years.
Yeah.
They figured it out, and that should terrify the Raptors, who already have so many question marks coming into another first round where they have a matchup that's a must-win for them to really solidify Kawhi Leonard staying.
Totally, yeah, they need this matchup for sure, and they got to go deep in the playoffs. So if they were to win this series, or whoever wins this series, they would play the winner of one of the more interesting series in the Eastern Conference. Number 3, Philadelphia 76ers taking on the number 6 Brooklyn Nets. Now, I think Brooklyn is, I think they have a real chance with this shot, especially if the reports are true that Joel Embiid might be out for this upcoming weekend of NBA basketball and could miss multiple games in this series. Without Joel Embiid, do you think that the Sixers can still take care of business? I mean, I have no question that they would if he was healthy in the lineup, but it may be a lot more difficult if he's out. Jordan, what do you think?
Joel Embiid is definitely an X factor. If he does not play, this is Brooklyn's series for the taking. Joel Embiid is such a huge piece of Philadelphia's offense, and there's really no one at center that they could really play for extended periods. Boban, Marjanovic would be the first guy we can think of. So Philly's depth does come into question for this playoff series, whereas we all know Brooklyn has a very deep bench, and they have a lot of guys, quality guys that can come off the bench. It seems to me like that seems to be a recurring trend of these lower seeded Eastern Conference teams. Jeremy Lamb on Charlotte. Obviously Charlotte didn't make the playoffs. Terrence Ross with Orlando, and Spencer Dinwiddie. Guys who come off the bench and just put the ball in the hoop. So I don't think Joel Embiid's going to miss any games this first round series. I think that starting lineup, that Fab Five they built in Philadelphia, is quite a group to watch, and I think that they're going to be okay and survive the scare that would be the upstart Brooklyn Nets.
Okay, yeah, that's fair comments, man. And like you said, if Joel Embiid's healthy, no question, I think the Sixers take this. Now, one of the also more interesting matchups in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference this season is the 4-5 matchup with the Boston Celtics, who are now without Marcus Smart, their best defender for the first 2 series at least, with a torn oblique, versus the Indiana Pacers, who have been without Victor Oladipo for most of the season, and have still been a 47-48 win team this year. Jordan, who do you have winning this matchup, man? Can the Pacers pull off the upset?
there's a lot to speak about. I'm actually really glad that this matchup is happening in the first round, because Boston and Indiana have both had opposite things happen to them this year. Indiana had their star player go down. Boston had all their star players together. Indiana has rallied behind their team as a camaraderie and their ability to play team basketball together to remain in that playoff spot, where Boston has been fighting and bickering between each other based on who deserves to get the most amount of minutes based on last year's playoff performances, has let them slip. So now all of a sudden in this 4 vs 5 matchup, I think this is probably the first round matchups to watch. I don't see Indiana pulling off this upset. I just think with no star power, but Bojan Bojanovic is only going to take you so far into the playoffs. And honestly, I'd really like to see Boston, try again to challenge the Milwaukee's, the Toronto's, the Phillies in that second round. I think that's really, the matchups that I would like to see. Like I said, depth always comes down to it. Boston, deeper team. That's going to be Boston at 6.
Okay, I'm going to swing the other way on this one. I think that the Indiana Pacers, because of their team chemistry and the way that they play the game, and considering Marcus Smart will be out, I think people are underestimating the impact he has on the Celtics defense. I think that the Pacers are going to pull off an upset here and take this thing in 7 games and lead to the exit of one Kyrie Irving to another team in the offseason. That is my bold prediction for this Eastern Conference first round.
So do you honestly think that in today's NBA, that is 100% based on superstar power, is all of a sudden now going to rely on a bunch of team role players even, like Indiana, to get them to the next round? Do you seriously see that happening?
I see it happening. I think that Indiana's a very good defensive team, and I think that they can push this Celtics team who don't get along. Team chemistry goes a long way in basketball as well, Jordan. That's something that's very underestimated, and Boston missing their glue, I think they could struggle. So
I disagree. I just think Marcus Smart is not an X factor. Defensively, sure, but I don't think he is going to be missed when you have Terry Rozier, you have Kyrie Irving, Jaylen Brown. I think everyone else is going to get more minutes. It's going to allow them to be successful.
Well, to be seen. I think that's definitely one of the more one of the more interesting series we have. Moving on to the Western Conference, our first matchup here. I think similar to the East, not much to see. We got the number 1 Golden State Warriors taking on the LA Clippers. Jordan, 4-game or 5-game series?
Stop. Please stop. He's already dead. Please stop. No more.
Yeah, it's a wrap. Bring out the brooms.
No, I'm not looking forward to that series at all. There's nothing that LA can do that can excite me to try and get me involved in watching this series. Zubac is going to foul out in the first 30 seconds of every playoff game, and Lou Will is going to score 30 points a game, and they're going to lose by an average of 15 points. It's going to be a 4-game sweep.
Yep, I don't think there's much to see here. The Clippers didn't really deserve... Well, I can't say they didn't deserve to be in the playoffs. They didn't expect to be in the playoffs. They were trading away their best player in hopes of clearing up cap space for the offseason, which is what they will be focusing on much sooner than any other playoff team in this league. The second matchup that we have, very interesting matchup, Jordan. We have the up-and-coming Denver Nuggets as the number 2 seed against the White Walkers, the never-dead Greg Popovich-led San Antonio Spurs. Is this the perfect storm for a veteran Spurs team to take out this young, inexperienced Nuggets team? Or will the Nuggets prove their dominance?
Absolutely. No, this is the upset watch that everyone should have on their radars, just because you can never count out San Antonio Spurs basketball.
No.
I mean, I think both these teams play very similarly in the sense that they rely on that inside-out style of play. They have good, three-point shooters, but obviously not great three-point shooters, and rely on that team aesthetic of basketball. So I think watching this series would be great for the hoop heads, the basketball fans, the true basketball fans, to really see what it's going to take to win this series.
Yeah, I think the only way that the Spurs will have a chance to win in this series is if DeMar DeRozan steps up and shakes his label as a playoff choker, because, again, this is why the Raptors dealt him away for Kawhi Leonard this year, is to get a certified closer, because DeMar DeRozan has been known to disappear in games like this.
That's right. So, that's the big question mark.
Who would you pick? Who would you pick if you had to pick today?
I'm still going with San Antonio.
You think Spurs will win?
My boy Double D out. I think that San Antonio's got the personnel to upset.
Interesting. I think the Nuggets will take this, but I think it'll be a 7-game series for sure, with the home team winning each game. That's my prediction for this series.
Back and forth, eh?
Yeah, I think so. It won't be easy for them. They haven't really had much adversity yet. Usually up-and-coming teams have to go through a year of adversity before they really excel, so we'll see what happens. But let's go to the 3-6 matchup in the Western Conference. We have the number 3 Portland Trail Blazers sneaking into that 3rd spot right at the end of the season, and they will take on the number 6 seed Oklahoma City Thunder. Jordan, to me, this seems like also just another upset waiting to happen, if you can even call it an upset. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder will take this series, and the main reason for me is the fact that Yusuf Nurkic is out of the lineup for the Portland Trail Blazers and will be replaced by Enes Kanter.
When I think about playoffs, my nipples get hurt.
Due to injury. And, Nurkic just raised the ceiling for what this Portland Trail Blazers team was capable of. And without him, I think they're first-round fodder. What do you think, Jordan?
I'm really upset that Portland has to play OKC, because Portland, like Orlando, was one of the hottest teams coming into the end of the regular season. I believe they finished their record close to the 22-7, 22-8 mark that Orlando set, more to 15-5, 15-6. So to have to play that well and end up having to play one of the best defensive players and one of the most aggressive, dynamic players in Paul George and Russell Westbrook is really unfair. I like this Enes Kanter throwback, like playing against his old team in OKC, who traded him away. But you're right, this is first-round fodder for Portland again, unfortunately. And there's nothing they can do about it, because I think OKC matches up with them a lot better than they have the personnel to compete. So poor Dame's going to try and do his best, but it won't be enough.
Yeah, I think this the middle pack of the Western Conference, I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder couldn't have asked for a better path to the NBA Finals. They basically get this injury-riddled Portland Trail Blazers team. Then they either play the San Antonio Spurs or the Denver Nuggets, who are very inexperienced as well. They could potentially just steamroll to the Western Conference Finals, which leads to a matchup of the 4-5 seed that is probably the most interesting series, I would say, in the Western Conference. We have James Harden and the Houston Rockets playing against Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, and Spida Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. Jordan, who do you got winning this series?
Is this a joke? I'm sorry, this is not an interesting series. This is Houston in 5.
What?
This is absolutely not going to be an interesting series whatsoever. We've got James Harden on a monumental tear right now. We've got Houston fully healthy, and this is Utah's first playoff series back since the Gordon Hayward era. I'm not convinced. I really don't see Utah being able to do any damage to Houston whatsoever. Really, I don't think they match up well, and I don't think that they'll have an answer for James Harden. Donovan Mitchell, don't think he's a good defensive player. He's good offensively, but he won't be able to do nothing to stop the beard.
I find that interesting. You say that. That's, I would think that the Utah Jazz, who they were in fact in the playoffs last year, Jordan.
Really? Did they make the playoffs last year? Oh, I must be 2 years behind.
They beat the Oklahoma City Thunder last season, 4-2, and then lost to this Houston Rockets team 4-1.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. So they have had their struggles with this Houston team. I think they're a better team than they were last year. One more year with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, who's, cemented himself as one of the top defensive players in the entire league. And I think that they'll make a series out of this. They'll make James Harden work. And I think the key for the Rockets here is that all eyes are going to be on them this season and this postseason. I think they have probably the most pressure to succeed, and they need to stay healthy. They're one Chris Paul injury away from an NBA Finals, an NBA championship potentially last season. I think health will be a big key factor here in deciding how far they go. Because if Harden's left out there to handle the load all by himself again, I think that'll be bad news. And I just don't trust Chris Paul at this time of year. So the pressure's on Houston for this one. I think Houston will win, but I think it'll go at least 6 games. So, Jordan, we're coming close to the end here. Can I hear your final predictions for who's coming out the East and who's coming out the West?
Warriors, Bucks.
Bucks.
It's going to be the number 1 seeds on both sides, guys. I'm sorry to say that we think that it's going to be different this year with LeBron now being in the playoffs, and trust me, I'm the first one to tell everyone how excited I am for LeBron this playoffs. Somebody other than Miami or Cleveland coming out of the East. But honestly, the numbers don't lie. The teams that have been the most dominant, are talking about our 60-win teams, that being Golden State and Milwaukee. I mean, let's face it, they've got the players, they got the player personnel, and they've got one of the most transcendent guys in the league. The only guy who I think can really combat against Golden State would be Houston in the Western Conference, but they got to play each other in the second round. So that means there's a lot to go between them and now before they finish up. And obviously the Raptors, I definitely think they have a chance against Milwaukee. I just don't think they have the answer with Giannis. Maybe if Kawhi plays all those playoff games, but you know what? I don't believe that this is their year, and I think it's going to be a Warriors dynasty repeat. Raj, what you think?
I think that it's going to be Warriors-Raptors in the NBA Finals this season. That's not just my Raptors bias coming out. As I mentioned in the last podcast, I was on another podcast earlier, and those guys also agreed that they believe it will be the Raptors versus Warriors in the NBA Finals, just because of the fact that the Raptors are just so dynamic this season. And, Milwaukee Bucks, with their injuries that they have right now, I think they're real vulnerable to being upset. Nikola Mirotic is out with injury. They've got Malcolm Brogdon, who people aren't talking about this enough. The fact that he's injured right now is a major loss for this Milwaukee Bucks team. He's that stabilizer. He's that old, steady, old, reliable, and he's always been clutch as both an offensive and defensive player. So with all that in mind, I think it's going to be Warriors-Raptors, and I hate to say it, but I think the Warriors will three-peat. But I think the Raptors will give them a run for their money. And quite honestly, I feel like the Warriors' biggest challenge this year is going to be whichever team comes out of the Eastern Conference. It's a weird year where a lot of the Eastern teams have been, at the top at least, better than some of the Western teams. And I think the Bucks and the Raptors can give the Warriors a serious run for their money, regardless of which of those teams makes it.
I just don't really see that much competition in this year's playoffs. I'm not seeing a lot of the star power. Maybe that's because LeBron is not in it. It's very apparent that the best team is going to win, and the best team is the Golden State Warriors.
All right, man. Well, this should be a very exciting playoffs, in my opinion. You never know at this time of the year. Anything could happen. But, Jordan, that's all the time we have today. We'll catch up again after the first games are played. But for now, take us away, man.
Now, remember, kids, like my good friend Kevin Garnett says, it's the playoff edition of the Give and Go podcast. Anything is possible! So don't forget, this has been another fabulous episode of the Give and Go podcast. You can find us at all of your social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter. We've even got a YouTube channel. You can find us on SoundCloud at Give, letter N, Go Podcast. Don't forget to download today's latest episode on Google Play Store, wherever your favorite podcast apps can be found, including Podcast Addict, and we're also on iTunes, so check us out there. Remember, we're releasing daily written and verbal content on our new website, our new sponsor, basketballers.ca, where it's basketball know-it-alls giving head-to-head opinions on today's current NBA information. Now, we've given you that information, and we want you to go do something with it. Give and go.
And we out.